Welcome to the Talent Development Hot Seat. I'm your host, Andy Storch, and I'm excited that you're joining me today for another great episode and conversation to help you up your game and improve your capabilities in the world of talent development. And today we are talking about leadership development and helping support our leaders in becoming better at what they do, as well as how to have more effective meetings as well. My guest today is an expert on this subject. Mamie Kanfer Stewart is the founder of Meteor and the Modern Manager, where she serves as an executive coach, speaker, and host of the Modern Manager podcast, on which I have been a guest recently. She is also the author of the book Momentum: Creating Effective, Engaging, and Enjoyable Meetings, one of everybody's favorite topics. And with nearly 20 years of experience in organizational development, Mamie helps managers and teams work more effectively together. She holds an MBA from NYU Stern School of Business and focuses on transforming how leaders approach management, meetings, and team dynamics to create more engaging and productive workplace environments. Mamie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm super excited to get to talk with you. And we had such a great conversation on my podcast that it's now exciting to be here on yours.
That's right. We did have a great conversation all about how leaders can build their personal brand. So if that's a topic you're interested in, or many others around management, make sure you check out the Modern Manager podcast. I'm excited to dig in to this topic today. I want to start with the topic of meetings because you wrote a book on this topic. We all go to meetings. Everybody can relate to having been to meetings that they thought that was a waste of my time, or I'm really glad I went to that meeting. So what have you observed over the years about what makes a really great meeting and what makes a really bad or especially terrible meeting?
Well, I feel like almost anyone can answer that question because we've all been to meetings, as you said, where we walk out and it's like so energizing and we feel so good about the work and so good about the decision and so good about our colleagues. And then we've had meetings where we're literally sitting there 20 minutes and going, why am I here? Or you're, typing on the keyboard, really trying hard to make sure that your facial expression is staying super neutral so that nobody knows that you're multitasking at the same time because
Yes.
you cannot stand to sit here for another minute doing
No.
nothing.
Right.
So, what it really boils down to, if I'm going to get, super simple about the one big difference, what I have seen and what I teach my clients is that you need to know the outcome of the meeting. You need to know what the meeting is trying to accomplish. And then everyone in the meeting needs to know and understand that same outcome, because when you're driving towards an outcome, you make progress. When everyone thinks we're doing something different or doesn't know why we're here, it is way too easy for conversations to wander, for people to not be sure how to contribute, and for the feeling of this could have just been an email. If you're just going to tell me information, like I could have just read this or watched a video. Like, did I really need to sit here for an hour and look at slides? Like, no. So we need to know what the outcome is. We call it the desired outcome. And the simplest way to do that is to just answer the question at the end of this meeting. We will have what? We'll have a decision. We'll have a list of questions we need to answer. We'll have a plan with assigned roles for who does what by when. We'll have a final version of the slide deck that we can present at tomorrow's meeting, whatever it is. When you know the outcome, everything else follows from that.
That is so important. And I saw on your website that one of the most important things that you do with clients is help them set up what I think you call the one goal meeting, to like make sure you have a goal going into that meeting, which as I thought about that, I thought, how many meetings have I been to where you just thought we'll get together and then we'll figure it out. But the more information you have ahead of time and the more clarity and alignment you have on the objective, the easier it is to jump in there and start taking action on that to make sure, okay, now we know what we're coming away with. We have a very clear goal.
Exactly. So whether you call it an outcome, a goal, an objective, a purpose, it doesn't matter what you call it as long as you are phrasing it as a noun and not a verb. So it needs to be a decision, not we're here to make a decision. And it's a little bit of a tricky way to think, but it shows up really clearly when we say things like, well, we're here to discuss the issue with the client. What are we actually trying to accomplish then? We're going to have a lovely discussion, but it's not clear what the outcome is. So if we get in the habit of stating nouns, the outcomes, rather than, or the goals, rather than the verbs, we're going to review, we're going to discuss, we're going to brainstorm, we're going to create, we're going to revise, get rid of those verbs and think about the outcomes. And as you said, then it becomes very clear, what do we need to do in this meeting? Who needs to be here? what information do people need to have ahead of
Yeah.
time to show up effectively in the meeting? How can I design activities to do in the meeting that are going to help us get that thinking that we're looking for into the room, whether it's opening up the door for brainstorming or closing down into decision making? If you don't know the outcome and you're focused too much on the verbs, it's going to be really hard to make sure you've got the right people there and the right setup for success.
On the topic of having the right people or knowing who needs to be in the meeting, does everybody need to be in a meeting? Let me phrase this a different way. Does it make sense to invite or have people in a meeting if they don't have a role in the meeting? And I'm thinking back to a time where I worked for a large company in a more junior role. And to be fair, I wasn't a great fit for this role anyway. But I remember sitting in these long, weekly department update meetings where I really had no role. And I was just sitting there trying hard not to fall asleep, like really trying hard not to fall asleep, even though most of the topics didn't interest me and I didn't even have an update to give. I think my manager was giving an update. And I don't know if I had something better to do, but in theory, if you don't have a role in a meeting, I would think your time is probably better spent off doing work and then reading an email recap later. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so I want to answer this in a couple of different pieces. So
Okay.
first is when you invite the wrong people to a meeting, and we've all been those wrong people, right?
Yeah.
It feels like you're wasting your time. It feels frustrating. It feels disrespectful. It feels kind of like it drains your morale and your energy for the day. So there's a lot of reasons why you don't want to have people who aren't the right people in your meeting. Because it's not just that 30 minutes or an hour that got wasted. It actually has much bigger ripple effects on us and how we understand ourselves to be a part of this team or this organization. So we don't want to just dismiss that and say, well, then we should, just always have everybody at the meeting just to cover our bases. No, that's not what you want to do. But when you think about who the right people are to have, there are two different things I think about here. So the first is who needs to be part of this meeting and the meeting cycle. We'll talk about that in a second, to get to that outcome that we're driving to get to that goal. And some people need to be engaged beforehand. You might need to run something by your boss to make sure that they feel good about the way you're approaching this decision, but they don't actually need to be in the decision meeting. You just need to get their approval that the criteria you've set are the right criteria, or the options you have on the table, they're fine with any of them. Then there's the people who need to be engaged in the meeting. And those are the folks who need that real time. I have information to share in the meeting that's part of this mix. I need to be part of the decision. I need to be part of bringing in a perspective that's important here. And then there's the people who need to be engaged after, the people who need to know what's going on, what decisions were made, what the next steps are, making sure that that information gets shared out through a meeting recap, which, thank you, AI, has made very easy for us to do. So we want to think about people in our meeting as really who needs to be engaged before, who needs to be there present during, and who needs to be followed up with after. And that will start to help you keep each person in the right bucket and not have this kind of meeting overload where we just invite everyone. Now, there is a reason to kind of break this rule. And it goes, I think, a little bit to your story, which is sometimes we want to invite people to meetings, not because they have an active participation role, but because it's a learning opportunity. Because we want them to be able to be in a conversation and understand a situation better, or have access to watching how decisions are made so that they can get smarter, so that when they're in a position to make decisions, they understand how we think about and go through processes of decision making within our organization. Or it could be for networking. You want to give someone an opportunity to have some face time with your boss or with someone from another department who they otherwise wouldn't have access to. And it feels a little bit awkward to say, let's just go to have a coffee date. Like, that's not the right way to get them face time. But bringing them to a meeting and letting them observe and meet someone and shake their hand or see them and say hello on Zoom, that can be a great way to support that internal networking. So there are some reasons why you'd want to invite folks even if they're not participating, but you want to be really thoughtful and you want to be clear to them, to the individuals, why they're there. Because if you haven't told them, I want you to come because I want you to learn this thing, or I want you to have exposure to this person, they're not going to take advantage of that in the way that you are hoping them to. They're going to feel oftentimes like, ugh, why am I here? I feel like I'm falling asleep, right? Or they might be really excited to be there, but they're not going to still be able to take full advantage of the fact that they're there and gain as much from that experience.
Right. Yeah. It's so important to get clear on the who and the why, and why do these people need to be in the room. Now, I would imagine almost all of these things comes down to the manager, the leader in the group that is deciding, hey, we need to have this meeting, or defining the culture. So I'm going to use that as a segue into talking about management and talking about leadership, which I know is another one of your specialties. And your podcast is called The Modern Manager. I've thought a lot about this concept of modern leadership as well, because I do think leadership has really changed over the years. And I'm curious, from your perspective, how has the role of the modern manager evolved over the past, we'll say 10 years or longer?
Well, if we go kind of way back in the day, I would say the kind of mental model around management was I'm the boss, you work for me, you do what I say.
Mm-hmm.
And that shifted then to we have to collaborate. It's my job to really support the team. I'm here to kind of bring out the best of each person. And I would say we're still in that same general mental state that being a manager is about getting great work done by empowering your people to be their best self and do their best work. The nuance now, I think, that we're experiencing, and I don't think we've really fully settled on what this means, is that it's not just people, because now we have the complexity of the world and the workspace that we're working in. So it's people across culture. It's people engaging with AI in ways to do their work. It's managing from a distance. We have more generations in the workplace, right? There's so much going on that has made what was not ever easy, because every single person is unique. And so if you've managed one person, you've managed one person.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just compounding right now in what that looks like for managers. And I see the role of management, or kind of the role of a modern manager, is to be someone who is ever pushing themselves to grow and learn so that they can best serve and support their people.
Mm. As I've studied talent development over the last, we'll say 7 years or longer, I've found that I think one of the most challenging or biggest challenges in talent development is when people are asked to make the transition from individual contributor to manager. Oftentimes, that promotion happens because the person was really good at doing a certain job, and now they're seen as someone who can help others do that job, even though they may not have necessarily a proclivity for leadership or management, and often don't even get the training for management. I'm curious, how do you think organizations can better support people in that transition? What do you see as some of the mistakes and maybe some of the best practices there?
Yeah, I mean, this is why I started the Modern Manager, was
Mm.
because so many people I was engaging with around meetings, which was my first kind of starting point, were saying, no one ever taught me how to run a meeting. In
Mm.
fact, no one ever taught me anything about how to lead people. And yet that's my job. My entire job now is working with these folks to try to create value and have impact. And I have no clue on what I'm doing. And so, what it really comes down to is I think we have overlooked as a system the importance of the skill set around working, collaborating with, managing people. There's a lot on managing projects, and there's a lot around leadership. But when it comes to the day-to-day engaging with people, we don't have a lot of programming. Most organizations do not have some sort of mentorship or resources or classes or courses that they require new managers, and for ongoing reasons, managers as they develop and grow, to help them learn what it is that it takes to be an effective manager.
Mhm.
So I feel like there's so many layers to this, because meetings is one piece, but there's also things around giving and receiving feedback,
Mhm.
around decision making with a group, right? Leading others, motivating people. There's just so many dynamics to what it is to be a manager, and we really don't do enough to support folks.
I was going to ask you next what you think are the most critical skills that we in talent development need to be thinking about to help our managers develop. If we're putting, we'll say, manager development programs together, or new manager development programs, what are the most critical skills? What are the skills that you think are the most important or critical to focus on?
I think everything related to conflict and feedback is a huge one, because we are naturally, and I learned this for myself too. I think of myself as someone who can, handle conflict and regulate my emotions. But it is human nature to avoid conflict, to want to be nice, especially as a new manager. You want your people to like you. And so giving feedback feels scary. Addressing conflict feels scary. So I think there's a whole world of skills around learning and understanding your own style, your preferences, feeling confident that you have processes to follow so that when you have to give someone feedback or when there's a conflict on your team, you're not just winging it or guessing or knowing I'm supposed to address this, but you have a process to follow to be able to do that. So there's a whole domain there. Then I think there's another domain that goes with collaboration. How do I work with each person individually to understand who they are so that I can best motivate them, hold them accountable, support them to grow, understand what they want to learn and advance and how to support them over the long term, and then how to bring people together. How do we collaborate on shared work and set up our good processes, whether it's meeting or project plans or decision making, and the dynamics across a group can be really challenging. So when you understand how to work with not just one-on-one with individuals, but across a group of people, like there's a whole other set of skills that I think we can develop there. So I'll leave it as those three buckets as the first point.
Yeah, so important. And there's a lot of skills, but I think what you talked about is really those interactions, the interpersonal skills, being able to have a coaching conversation, giving feedback, etc. When you come across managers who are struggling, even if they've maybe had some training on some of these things, what have you seen as the most common or biggest challenges that are holding managers back? What are they doing or what are they trying to hold on to that is preventing them from being a better manager?
Yeah. So I'll start two things. And the first, again, I can speak from experience on this one, which is recognizing that not everybody wants to work the way that you want to work.
Mm,
Not everyone likes the same things that you like. Not everyone is bothered by the things that bother you. And so when we start to recognize that we are not the center of the universe or our way is not the only way, it opens up opportunity for us to grow and stretch, and also for us to find new ways to engage with different team members. So, I joke that I'm the opposite of a micromanager. I want to hand someone some work and never think about it again until it's done. That
same.
is
Yeah.
right. That is my style. And when someone delegates to me that way, I'm like, great, just tell me what you want. I'll figure it all out. And that feels really good to me. But I had team members, and I learned this the hard way, where I would do that, and it was so stressful for them. And they would get really worried that they weren't doing it right. They'd spend hours trying to problem solve on things because they didn't want to come and ask me questions. Even though I said, my door is always open,
Right.
they felt like they were failing if they had to come ask me a question. And
Mm,
it took me a long time, much longer than it really should have. It was early in my career to realize that some people on my team, yes, hand them a goal, let them run. Other
mhm,
people, we need to sit and plan things out together. I
mm,
need to give them much more information. We needed to have scheduled check-ins so that they had opportunities where I would literally say into their face, tell me what you're stuck with, so that they
yeah,
felt they really could share those challenges and that it wasn't going to be seen as somehow that they were failing.
right.
So that is a huge shift in mindset for us as managers, is to recognize that every single person on our team is going to need something different from us if they're going to work their best and be their best. And when we can start to get out of our own way by showing up and thinking, everyone likes what I like and I'm going to keep doing the way I like, it's a game changer.
Yeah. I've talked to lots of people, run lots of leadership development workshops like you have. And I often ask people like, what are the things that the worst managers you've worked for do? And then I find the most common answer is micromanaging is like the worst offense, most, common offense that a lot of managers do. But it's such a great point and a reminder that everybody does work differently. And while nobody really wants to be micromanaged, some people do want more frequent check-ins. Some people do want a little bit more handholding than others who want to just take something and run with it and come back later. Whereas some people may not be able to move on until they get approval each step of the way and to say, just check in and say, hey, Mamie, are we heading in the right direction? Or do you want to do something differently? And it's such a great reminder to sit down and get to know each of the people who report to us and find out how they like to work, how they want to interact with us, what sort of feedback and encouragement do they want, the accountability that they may need to move forward, so that they can be most effective in their role as well.
Exactly. And delegation in general is the other piece that I see from managers that they struggle with the most.
Yeah.
Letting go of work, letting go of what feels like control is painful, and it is so deeply ingrained to us, and it often leads to so much micromanaging, which then makes us feel like it's not worth it, right? We're not getting the value that we need. We're not actually saving time because we're having to redo work if we take a step back and we don't micromanage. But if we do micromanage, then our team members hate us and it's not going well either. So there's a whole world around delegation, and that is the other piece that I see managers are really needing to develop their skill set in, because delegation is a process. And when you set yourself up correctly, when you set your team members up successfully, it changes the way that you work. And more importantly, it changes what you have, the opportunities that you have available to you, and the amount that your team members can grow. Because delegate is a way to grow your people. And
Right.
we hoard everything. We can't grow, and our team can't grow.
Yeah, it allows us to develop and grow people, gives them opportunities to stretch and do new things, and it frees up your time to focus more on leadership or management or doing other things that you want to do when you don't feel like you have to be bogged down with the day-to-day of doing the work, which in theory you shouldn't be as a manager or leader. Everyone's role is different. So, Mamie, we're talking about developing leaders, and our audience, our listeners, my network, the people we work with, work in talent development, learning and development. Lots of people building leadership development programs, figuring out the best ways to develop leaders in this day and age. I know you have run lots of workshops, and you told me before we started recording that you made a big shift years ago from these in-person workshops, especially on meetings, to what you call micro workshops, and you studied a lot about the best way that adults learn. So I'm curious, what did you learn through that whole process? What was the change that you make, and what have you found is the most effective way to develop people today?
I'm so glad you asked this, because it's something I'm really passionate about and I haven't really spoken that much about. So one of the challenges I saw when I was running 2, 3, 4-hour workshops in person, because no one has that much energy to sit on a Zoom call and watch a workshop presentation for that long, is that a couple things happen. One is we get information overload. I was teaching everything soup to nuts around effective meetings, and by the end, everyone's brains were just like mush. And maybe they felt energized because we had a good time in terms of the engagement and collaborating with their team members and moving around the room. But we'd walk out and people would have no recollection a week later of what they learned. Maybe they'd remember 1 or 2 key things that stood out for them, but it wasn't consistent across the group. So 50 people spent 4 hours together learning, and they each took something different away. That's not how you create systemic change in behavior for an organization. And when it comes to meetings, it really does require a team effort. I always say it's not up just to the meeting leader to make a meeting good. It's really up to everyone who's participating in those meetings. So if we're all thinking about different tactics or different strategies or different approaches, it's much harder to gain that consistency of practice that's going to move the needle on truly improving our meetings across the board, not just one here or there. The other challenge I saw was that companies are so dispersed. People don't get together very often. And so waiting to do professional development in terms of workshops once a year when you have a big team retreat, it's just not the way people learn. We don't learn in single individual moments. We learn best when it happens over the course of time, where we have opportunities to really practice things in real life, where we get that reinforcement, opportunities to ask questions, say, I tried this and it didn't work. Let's figure out together how I could do something differently so that in the future it does work. So I took kind of all of these negative experiences that I was having as a workshop leader and kind of talking to folks after and really trying to understand what was working and what wasn't. And what I learned about adult learning, that it has to be practical, it has to be applied, it has to be reinforced, it needs to happen and build over time. And this idea that we need it to be something that is shared so that we can get momentum within the team. And stopped doing in-person workshops and started doing what I call micro workshops, which are 30 to 45 minutes on Zoom, highly interactive sessions. They are focused on one very specific idea and skill, and they build over time. So we spend 30 to 45 minutes deep diving onto one particular practice. So for meetings, it might be a series of 6 micro workshops. And the first one is going to be just on writing meeting goals so that everyone has a chance to understand how do you construct a good meeting goal or good meeting desired outcome? How do you write one? We're actually going to practice writing them here in real time. And we're all now going to leave with this same understanding and the homework to go practice. And it doesn't matter if you're the meeting leader or not. If you've got a meeting on your calendar, you can try writing a statement, a goal statement for that meeting, and show it to the meeting leader and say, hey, is this what the meeting's about? Right? It gives you a chance to practice regardless. And then we go to the next meeting. And here now we're going to take those desired outcome, what we've learned about how to write this, and turn it into the next step, which is who should be in my meeting? And we're going to practice figuring out who should be engaged before, who should be there during, who should be there after. So we build these up over time. And the two things I think is really special about this, beyond just the way that it helps people learn better, is one, because they're all done on Zoom, anyone can join no matter where your team is located. And two, they're all recorded. And you get to now take these recordings and put them into your learning and development database for new employees so they can be part of their onboarding. So you don't have to worry that 2 years out, only half of your team remembers how to write a desired outcome and everyone else is kind of trying to learn it on the fly. No, they can watch all of these different video recordings and gain those same skills. And if someone's out sick or on vacation, that's also okay. They too can catch up on it. So we create learning accessible to anyone, anytime, over the course of time.
For these micro workshops, do you tend to try to keep the groups smaller as well? I'm thinking about the recording, and if you have bigger groups, then you would probably want to use breakout rooms, and then the recording's not quite as effective. Like, what's your approach on that?
Well, because they're so short, 30 minutes, we usually do 45 if we're going to include a lot more Q&A type conversation. 30 minutes is not that long. So you don't even need to have things like breakout rooms to make it more engaging. And I use a bunch of other features on Zoom that help elevate the engagement, but it's also just a lot of practice. It can be sitting in silence for 2 minutes while people are writing things out or typing things out on their own, and then asking different people to spotlight and share, what did you write, or put it into the chat so we can all see it. But 30 minutes goes by really fast. So people don't get bored. They don't lose their attention because we're only diving into one thing and it goes fast and quick, but there's that engagement to practice and make it real. You're not just asked to sit there and passively consume.
Okay. I want to get tactical for a minute here. If you're willing to share about as someone who facilitates and speaks in a lot of virtual sessions, and I know our audience are talent development professionals who run a lot of virtual sessions, probably about half of them on Zoom and the other half on Teams with maybe a small contingent who are using WebEx or Meet or something else. What are some of these other tools that you use, if you're willing to share, to make meetings or tactics you use to make meetings to make these virtual workshops more interactive or exciting?
All right. Well, I'm going to release my big secret, which is I joined a program called Inside the Show that is literally magic on Zoom, and it also works for Microsoft Teams. The founder has created these incredible systems that allow us to do all kinds of stuff on Zoom that Zoom itself doesn't allow you to do. So I can bring chats onto the screen. I can select someone's chat and show it on the screen so everyone can see the same chat that I'm looking at.
Wow.
I can have all of the people who are in the Zoom room show up around me instead of on the side panel. I can keep myself in camera and have my slides come in from the left so that on the recording, you get to see me and my slides and not one or the other. It's literally magic. We can do polls, like the incredible polls with graphics that people just answer into the chat, and it shows up on the screen, as an overlay on top of me of what people's answers are. So you don't have to use Slido or Mentimeter and bring people out of the room and go into something else. I mean, really, I cannot speak highly enough of this program. And it makes both being a presenter so fun, but it makes being in the audience so fun. And truly actually better than what an in-person workshop can do. Because with in-person workshops, yes, I could tell people have a little pair share and come back. But really, to engage with me, it has to be one-on-one. because I can hold a microphone or someone else can hold a microphone. Same thing in meetings. We're talking one-on-one. When you take advantage of what technology has to offer, we can all have the microphone at the same time because we can all be putting things on chat and everyone can be reading those at the same time. You
Right.
can't do that in a live workshop. It's just not the same. So I love that Inside the Show has created these tools that have just totally elevated the way that we can not just present online, but really create engaging learning experiences.
Wow, this is very interesting. I'm looking at the website right now for Inside the Show, and it looks like at the time we're recording this, I just missed a masterclass that they did, but I'm going to look into that in the future. Is this software that overlays on top of Zoom and Teams, or is it they've found hidden tools that are inside that use, or do we have to go attend the class to find out more?
Well, they use OBS as the software that runs and integrates with Zoom.
Okay.
They have built a ton of custom software, but when you join the program, they give you access to everything and they teach you how to customize everything for your content, for your brand. They really make it super easy to follow along. And I have just loved the program from start to finish and cannot speak highly enough of it.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And it sounds like you've put a lot of effort and time and investment in making sure that you are running effective programs as well to make sure that people are getting a lot of value in these micro workshops that you're running. We think about how managers are developing in organizations, and a lot of times they have longer leadership development journeys are going through, which might be made up of these smaller virtual workshops, sometimes in person. Since we're speaking with people in talent development, is there anything else you've seen that has been especially important for the development of managers, or anything else that you think is important for talent development professionals to be thinking about as they are developing managers in their organization?
Yeah, I feel like because half my hat is wearing the team and the workshop training kind of world, and the other half is as an executive coach, I can't say enough about the importance of coaching, especially for managers. We see this as something that is often reserved for directors, senior directors, C-suite, but managers need support like that too. They need someone that they can talk to because it feels very lonely. You can't always talk to your boss because you don't want to be seen as incapable. You can't always talk to your team members because you don't want to be seen as incapable. Maybe you can talk to other managers, but they're often struggling just as much as you are. And sure, there's a lot to learn from those peer groups, but by having a coach who's really there, who can support you, your specific growth, your specific challenges, that can make a huge difference. So, I think democratizing executive coaching and making it available, especially with AI now. There's some really great, I have an AI coach bot that I give to my members also. They can ask me anything they want into my coach bot and it pulls from my content and gives them personalized answers. There's so much we can do to support managers in their individual needs in ways that can help them grow even beyond what we can do in a course or a resource.
You reminded me, I haven't asked you, and I agree with you completely about coaching. I haven't asked you about AI yet. How have you seen managers using AI effectively now in their role as a manager? What tools or platforms or programs or methodologies could managers be thinking about to use to be more effective?
Well, I'll say what I'll say is that most what I've seen is that they're not using it, or they're
Mhm.
using it in very basic ways.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of potential for using AI to help us be better managers, not help us write better content, which it can do, not help us do better analysis, which it can do, but actually help us learn how to engage with our people best. So obviously, you need to make sure you're using a safe AI. You're following your company's protocols for security and privacy and all of that. But just a couple of things that AI can help you do as a manager. So one is if you teach your AI about each of your team members, their personalities, their successes, the things that they're struggling with, it can then help you shape conversations. It can give you ways to structure a conversation. It can give you questions to ask. One of the things that I love doing is recording little voice messages about something going on with a team member when I'm just out and about. And I think, oh, I want to say thank you to that person. Or, you know what, I think this person could develop this further. I'll just make little notes and pop them into my AI. And then I can just say, hey, review everything I've shared with you about this person over the last month. Tell me what the themes are for things that I want to show appreciation for, things that I think they could get better at. And it just becomes almost like a second brain that can help me
Mhm.
then support this person better. So that's just one example of what people could be doing to take advantage of AI. But the truth is that we're mostly very far from taking advantage of the full scope.
Right. A lot of people just not using it yet. And I would add too that I'm hearing a lot of organizations say now one of our biggest goals is encouraging more AI adoption or getting more people using AI in the organization. And as with anything else, people look to their leaders, right? And so if that's a goal for your organization, then it probably needs to be a goal for you as a manager, as a talent development professional, to be using AI more so you can set an example for others and help other people adopt AI tools as well. Maybe this has been fantastic. You have done so much great work and shared so much great knowledge with us on meetings, on modern management, on leadership, and on effective learning and micro workshops and virtual sessions as well. We've covered a lot of ground in this session. For anybody who wants to reach out to you to learn more about the work that you're doing, start a conversation, where's the best place for them to go?
Well, you can find my podcast and a ton of resources on themodernmanager.com. You can also go to mamieks.com, which is my personal website that has more information about my coaching and speaking and micro workshops. And then if you're really interested in meetings, go to Meteor.com, which is my meetings focused business. And of course, I'm on all the socials, YouTube, everywhere. Just look Mamie Kanfer Stewart.
Love it. Mamie, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've really loved our conversations, both on your show and on this show as well. And I'm looking forward to keeping in touch and talking more in the future.
Absolutely. Same here. Thank you so much for having me.